Hello, everybody. I'm Nicola Bastianello from KTH. Again, thank you to all of you speakers for these very nice and interesting presentations. So, yeah, we wanted to foster some additional discussions in the context of this workshop. So we have prepared a few maybe general questions that I think all of you could address in some form or another. And maybe to start with, I could ask you, like, what is the horizon of accomplishing explainability, in your opinion, in AI? Like, how far are we from achieving it? Yeah, if any of you speakers would like to chime in, please feel free to do so. Okay, maybe we can move on to another question. So, yeah, so ethics should be integrated in the Trustworthy AI framework. How far are we from these? Like, how far are we, and what do we need to change in our approach to make this happen?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a difficult question, and I also kind of going back to the previous question, also on explainability. I think it is really important. Explainability for whom? Is it for a consumer? I always joke in the projects that I'm involved with, and with the data scientists that I'm involved with explainability for people like me. And by that I mean people without a mathematical background. And that involves a lot of patience, because when you have complex problems and you have different disciplines contributing, one has to somehow find a common language for it to be explainable. And there's also what degree of explainability is being requested. From what my kind of basic knowledge of the technology, for example, something like a deep neural network, it cannot be explained 100%. And with the data scientists I've spoken with, that seems to be the case. So you on the one hand, you have like a legal threshold that you have to keep or relate to. And something should be explainable, say to a lawyer or to consumer, to the public. On the other hand, you have the technology that is, well, we can't explain to 100% how a deep neural network actually works. We can't give a guarantee how it will work, and that's a problem from a legal perspective. For example, if you're selling an AI system, it is challenging to say, well, I can guarantee that the system will work like this to 100%. I'm not sure if that was a answer or a question in itself.
Thank you. Definitely food for thoughts. So maybe, yeah, maybe some other of the speakers would like to expand on this point of, like, what is the threshold that we consider for explainability? As Professor Greenstein said, like, who is this explainability aimed to? Technical audience, general public, you know. Maybe you have anything to add on this?
Well, I can. I mean, from our project at least. I think to some extent the user that is interacting with the AI needs some level of explainability, right? Otherwise, the solution is not trustworthy. There's no way that, for instance, a worker working alongside a robot can trust the robot if he or she does not understand how the robot is making decisions, right? So there are different layers and different levels that it needs to be explained, right? So for a user like this, you need to provide some explanation of the how the reasoning works, right? And probably other stakeholders in the organization would need to understand also how those decisions are made, but to a different extent. So I see that there are different layers to it, but every stakeholder should, to some level, get an explanation.
Yeah, I agree to that, and there can be different users or towards which explainability can be tailored. There can be internal users as well who are developing the model when you are working on the model, and then they are in the process of development or just at the inference time monitoring the model, that if the environment changed and is the model really learning dynamically, and then is it learning correctly or not, all those aspects. So there are multiple internal user profiles. Then there are external users or the users who are interacting the system, and they need a different type of explanations. They don't need to understand the system. They need just high level view to trust the system. So their questions and their explainability is less technical and more social or ethical aspects to that. Then there are also regulatory aspects. The regulation is upcoming. We don't know how that will be implemented, and what will be the procedure to meet those regulations. But there will be some aspects and some different type of profile that needs to be provided for the audit purposes or for the regulatory bodies. And then, of course, our customer or anyone who is interacting with the system in a different profile way. So all these are, we put them under tailored explanations and the user profiles.
Thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Anybody else would like to comment on these topics?
Maybe just a couple of words on the type of machine learning tool we use. For instance, if we use regression trees, of course, when the size is manageable and progress has certainly been done in this area, you can do something. When we go in the area of very large language, say large language models, but large model in general, and those black boxes, for me there are serious difficulties in for instance, if you consider just the training of a network. You will train on a certain on a database. The measures that we use for training are average measures, so it will perform more or less well in the range that you provide in the training. But for the person who is conceiving the system, maybe there is no red light that will be displayed because they have the proper database. They put a solver like Adam, so everything seems in order to get a very good performance. but we don't know very well what is happening in this optimization phase, where we assume something which is out of reach to all solvers, which is global optimality of a complex function. And so I don't know how it's possible to handle this. Sometimes you can probably, based on the system description and on what you expect would be the performance, you can have reasonable explanation using several tools, but it may just be that your problem does not, your system does not produce a meaningful full result, because something went wrong in some part of the minimization. Some of my colleagues, they work on explanations, but usually you need something you can rely on, some rules, and but when you have this black box in large scale, you can have difficulties. And I'm working with people from Airbus, for instance, and here it's very important when you design some techniques for assistant for landing, or for this kind of critical applications, to have explanation. But with these tools, neural network with optimization, and even further when you do something like floating point arithmetic and or things like this, it's very, very hard. And for me, there is a true challenge when you talk about mobility, and for instance, of course, aeronautics, but not only.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So maybe moving on to a question that has been raised also during Professor Rodriguez's talk, like, could you expand a little bit on the auditability of these technologies that are being developed?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there is a clear need for developing technical tools that can aid this process, but the truth is that at the end, it's going to be companies developing this certification and seals of quality to be granted to companies to exhibit that they comply with the requirements of Trustworthy AI. So it's difficult to know now which ones are going to have some degree of enforcement, or being, let's say, compulsory for some companies in a given sector. So it's going to depend a lot on the sector of the high-risk AI system and the domain, let's say the vertical legislation, as well as the standards of the particular application. If it's in construction, if it's in infrastructure, they are going to have very different regulations. So auditability of AI is going to heavily depend on these domains, and there is no clear-cut solution for all domains. And yeah, since this is going to be, sadly, unless apart from the standards that are being created, there are being many efforts on it, like IEEE standard, etc., at a generic mode. So far, we don't know how to actually do it. So what we can do is develop technical tools that can aid us as developers, and to certify and to be sure ourselves and to our customers and the users or our models that this is still trustworthy. So I think that's the very beginning. We still need to work on it, even though we don't have a clear recipe for how to do it.
I can maybe also just add there that the technology is a black box, firstly because of the complexity, but also because the law makes it a black box, because the law protects the technology. And now I'm kind of referring to intellectual property rights. And Natalia, you mentioned that a lot of the producers of AI, they're private companies and their products are protected by intellectual property rights, and how this will pan out in relation to the AI Act is going to be interesting. But I think a really interesting aspect is intellectual property rights and who's allowed to access the technology to make an audit is going to be important and really interesting in the future, and something that will have to be dealt with. Yeah.
Thank you both for your comments. Yes, please.
Yeah, maybe I think we would need, for instance, IEEE has been mentioned by you, for instance, Natalia. What is very good is also to agree on tools to assess the quality of our systems. And to do that, we would need some tools that would be adopted by everybody, and that would help us to reach some standards. Some libraries, when we talk about explainability, what are the good tools, statistical tools from symbolic AI that we can use. And I think it's at the same time we have to be able to build those libraries that will be used by everybody, because we need also in standard in evaluating the standard. And I don't know what's going on in this area, but I think if everybody is doing his own diagnosis for this, it will not be helpful. And so and we need to progress a lot in this road.
Indeed, I agree.
Thank you all. So maybe following up on this discussion, as you said, this standardization is coming mainly from companies. Do you see a need for, besides the European regulation that has been developed and will become law soon, do you see a need for a European level initiative on standardization, auditability, besides the legal framework that has been developed?
Can I take this or start this at least, coming from the industry side, and you are asking from the question to the industrial standards and that part. So I personally think that it is heavily dependent on different industries. As far as telecom is concerned, like 3GPP standard is established, and the telecom developers, operators, they follow that standard heavily. And then in addition to that, there are like a couple of others which are ongoing in that parts. So personally, I think that like those standards will cover eventually the trustworthy AI aspect, so that everyone agrees on the standard interfaces on how to implement their messages and procedures. So I speak only from the telecom, and I think leave it to others to comment on it.
Yeah, I think standardization from the legal aspect is an extremely interesting topic, and a topic that actually isn't focused on at all, I would say, from the legal perspective. I mean, standards have an extremely important legal function as well. The problem with standardization, however, is that I mean, it is a lot of technical people involved in the making of these standards. Usually technical companies, and I mean, standards have an extremely important legal function, yet they don't really go through the same process as traditional lawmaking. So if you make a law here in Sweden, for example, it goes through a really large public process where anyone can comment on it, and it takes a lot of time, but it is useful so that everyone can have their say. From my limited understanding of the standardization process, I mean, it is really a closed community making these standards. And they also cost a lot of money, so not many people have access to them once they are developed. But I think standardization is, from the legal perspective, a really important aspect that we lawyers don't pay attention to nearly enough. Thank you.
Yeah, just to comment here, I'm not very familiar with the landscape of standards for AI model evaluation and assessment of aspects like explainability. But one output of this webinar could be discussing the possibility of doing a joint Sinsenelec workshop on it's a common procedure to kick off the preparation of standards. So if within our projects we find we both identify that we have this gap missing, in the standardization landscape, we can discuss the possibility to prepare a joint CCWA in this sense.
Thank you. We will definitely discuss this. And thank you all for the comments. So maybe something that is adjacent to this discussion we've had so far is one question in the chat was how do you compare the legal ethical treatment of AI to other potentially dangerous technologies like nuclear arms and all that stuff? Like, do you see the framework in which we handle those technologies as relevant to AI?
Should I kick this one off? I mean, in many discussions, the issue does come up, and sometimes I think there is this kind of debate as to whether we are holding AI to a higher standard than we hold humans to. We expect AI to work better than us humans. We humans aren't perfect, but we expect the technology we create, AI, to be perfect. And that sometimes is seen as giving AI a bit of a bad rep, a bad reputation. But it is a relevant question. Something that I always like to just focus on is the fact that AI is not like any other technology we've come across before. Mainly because of its ability to manipulate people, especially when we come into the area of like large language models, where AI has kind of hijacked the human operating system, our ability to communicate via language. And that's, I think, an important difference if you start thinking between AI and other technologies, is that it is an extremely powerful tool that can be used to manipulate people. In the end, potentially having democratic consequences. So yes, maybe it is a bit unfair holding AI to a different level of a different standard. At the same time, AI is not like anything we've kind of produced before. That's my lawyer perspective.
Yeah, and also I think it is like the regulatory aspect. It is not to stop the innovation, because innovation won't stop on AI or that part. This will just go on. It is just the malicious use of AI, and as Stanley said that, like, we have never developed such a technology before. So yes, regulations are needed not to stop the innovation, but the malicious use of the innovation itself.
Yeah, actually, it should promote innovation rather than hinder it, right? I mean, and yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
but
But I also, in a sense, so sorry, I feel secure that at least in Europe we're considering having a strong regulation on AI. We have it in other fields and technologies. For instance, in robotics, we have for human robot collaboration, we have a very strong regulation, and it makes our workspaces a lot more secure than in other regions. So in that sense, I think we I mean we need also a strong regulation to protect the citizens.
Yeah. So maybe for me, what is also quite different from other revolutions that we had is that technology is going much quicker and much further than our understanding. And for critical system, probably we can rely, as you say, Francisco, on regulations, and also Rafia saying that. But maybe there are some applications that are not part of the critical system area, and which are more connected to our freedom as human to use internet and I think with the current revolution of AI, we don't know exactly how far that can go, even on non-critical system. And then it poses the question of how much you want to regulate, how much you trust, and it is really a deep question about what you want to see as a human being for the future world, and and uh, and and I think the question is also on non-critical systems.
Thank you all for the comments. I think maybe I would like to ask you to expand a little bit more on this relationship between innovation and regulation that also Professor Inam mentioned in her last comment. Do you see the current regulatory impetus being counterproductive to innovation, or do you think innovation has enough room to grow, or should it be left this much room to grow?
maybe I can start off. I mean, any time you have some kind of regulation, then you automatically kind of stopping something or putting the brakes on something, as opposed to letting it just develop on its own and go wild, so to speak. So any kind of regulation is by default a kind of putting the brakes on something. A danger is always when you wait too long to regulate, and then suddenly you have to regulate in a strong way. Then it can be seen as extremely, you have to put on the brakes extremely quickly, and that you don't want to do either. You don't want to stop the technology going, getting away, moving too fast. I mean, from the legal perspective, law is there to protect society, and it's also there to kind of foster innovation, and that's an incredibly difficult task. And also then it comes down to values once again. What kind of society do we want? what kind of values do we want the technology we create to incorporate? And is it worthwhile just slowing things down a little bit until we have more certainty of where this is all going? But there are lots of different forces at play. You've got industry, you've got all these wonderful inventions that can be used to potentially save life. And yeah, we come into the ethical aspect again. Is it ethical to kind of slow things down in the short term, knowing that, well, maybe we, for example, can't save as many lives as we could have if we had just let it go free. But yeah, thank you.
Anybody else who would like to comment on the tension between regulation and innovation?
Yeah, I fully agree to what Professor said before. And it is a challenge. It is a balance needed there. And in the industries, we are not aware of how it will impact all of us and how it will impact the innovation itself. And then there are different regulatory bodies. So I'm adding the question instead of responding to it. EU AI Act is the most thorough one, at least like to my limited knowledge. I read UK one, which is very preliminary. Parts of it, not that detailed, not restricting many things. Canadian regulation is, I would rate it like at the second place as compared to the EU AI Act. US is a bit behind on the regulation. Their latest the executive order that President Biden signed is just for mostly emphasizing the need of the trustworthy AI for different organizations and recruiting the skilled people there and all that parts, rather than giving the direction or the regulations of what to do. But all this will come, and we don't have a very clear view on what will be impacted, what will be stopped, how much we can move forward with the innovation. But in the end, it all boils down to which values we need in the society, basically.
Maybe just a quick comment. You probably heard about this text that has been signed by the most important players to slow down the deployment of AI. It was signed by Musk and other people, people from academia and people from industry. And so what I found interesting is that there was a call for slowing down, maybe to cure a bit the market, because even people who are keen on making a lot of value, they want to be in a situation where things are pretty nice, not a too wild explosion of many ideas, many platforms, many tools. So it turns out that even if you are talking about creating value for some of those very important company, it's important to regulate a little bit. Of course, you had also in the same text people from research and academia saying that we don't understand enough what's going on with AI, and this is why also we have to pause. But what I found interesting is that a form of regulation is needed to have also a market, a safe deployment of a market. And of course, the issue here is that other countries, like or other continent like China, They make a lot of progress in all these tools, and in terms of competition between economies, slowing down create other issues. But okay, so the general idea is that slowing down it can be also very good for producing good value for some people in the world, at least.
Thank you for all the nice comments. So, yeah, maybe coming back to something that has been quickly mentioned earlier. So safety, like what happens when AI is deployed in like practical, like in technologies, in vehicles, in infrastructure, where possibly human lives are at stake, or like injury to humans could result. Like, what do you see? Like, what is, in your opinion, the right approach to guarantee safety of these technologies? I know it's another very general question. Just, feel free to give your thoughts on this. And since we have people from different backgrounds. Yes, please.
I guess yesterday we had at our institute this week AI safety seminar. So I think it's huge, the efforts that are being done by large organizations. I think that the main point is in the human alignment. Like, I think this is one term used in the AI safety, that at the end we need to align with the human values, right? So sometimes it may be that companies have some other interests, like economical ones, but at the end, if we want to be true to ourselves, it's the human values alignment that we have to preserve. And most of the technology, at the end, we need to contribute ways where we can somehow measure that this alignment doesn't deviate from machines and humans. So this sometimes may be hard in regards with cultural norms from different continents, or even religion may get in between. And so I guess this is very, very important aspect, that from the design we need to be much more aware. And yeah, maybe just commenting also, there is this big call for funding from OpenAI that it asks for super alignment projects, and this was something big that perhaps there is no ethical people in their board anymore, but I think I found interesting also this call that they ask for research contributions for super alignment as a good thing. Of course, it's good, but we can't forget the ethics. So maybe something to be aware. That is something where it's maybe not easy to contribute, but it's something we need to work on.
I mean, the traditional approach, for instance, in robotics, is to try to limit the impact, right, of on the safety. For instance, in autonomous mobile robots, they by law in Europe, they need to limit their speed when they're sharing the space with humans, to minimize the, or to ensure that the energy of an impact is below the threshold that could cause an injury. So now the question is it possible to also do the same for AIs? Because when you're interacting with another intelligence, right, it's not only a physical impact that we're talking about, and physical safety, right? But there are also, like you can operator's feelings, or make him feel unsecure about his future, or the future of his workplace, right? So all these aspects need also to be considered and taken into account.
Thank you. And anybody else who would like to comment on the safety aspect of these technologies?
One thing. Yeah, you
continue.
go ahead.
Okay. I mean, one thing is, I mean, generally speaking, I think things are going to get better when it is maybe controlled by AI. For example, self-driving automobiles. I mean, if you look at how many people are killed every year, say in the United States by people, accidents caused by people, I mean, that number is going to drop dramatically. So if it's 50, 60,000 per year, that number is going to drop dramatically. However, this will still be accidents with self-driving automobiles. And in the beginning, it's probably going to get a lot of media attention because suddenly you've got machines killing people. But I mean, and here one comes down to the ethical aspect again. I mean, on the whole, the society will be better because on the whole, you will be decreasing the number of people dying in car accidents, but there will still be people dying. Do you take care of their interests, or do you take care of the interests of the society as a whole? And another aspect to AI is also the robustness and scale, because when things potentially can go wrong, the potential is that they go very wrong large scale. So if you have large systems that get hacked, for example, the potential to do harm is just so much greater with all these AI systems. Thank you.
Professor Inan, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I think with respect to the safety parts, different regulations are already in place. They are, yes, AI brings new challenges to the safety, but safety itself has been a concern from before. It is not new, as we say, the AI part. So there are already regulations. There are ISO standards for safety for robotics, for example. There are different standards, and the same goes for the safety in other domains as well. So it is, they are all, those all standards meet the requirements. For robots, there are different rules even specified in the ISO standards that they should not increase the certain, they should not move with a certain speed if they have a certain mass on it, or if they have a certain load they are carrying on that part. So all these things are to implement that part. And the safe goes not just for the safety, but for privacy and security, because these three aspects we have already worked on, and we need to check the new challenges which are brought into those fields using the AI part. And so it is, I just want to say that like it seems more scary, like the way we are talking now, but it is it will be okay. We are working on the direction. Yes, we need to work, we need to do more research, and we need to implement the solutions responsibly, which are not harmful, and then the regulations will come in place. But we are not completely blank in all the areas. We have some in some parts we have some basis and some solid ground under the feet, and then some parts are completely new.
Okay, I agree. Once again, I get back to the point I made earlier. I think it's really interesting. This is the role of standards and standardization, because there you it is for the most part technical people creating these standards, which really means you've got technical people making the law, and no lawyers making the law. And then at the end, you come with some lawyers making this thing called the AI Act. But the lawyers making that don't really understand the technology. And what they mostly do is they'll refer to the standard in the law. In actual fact, you've got technical people making law, and the lawyers aren't really getting involved. Besides AI Act, which is an interesting perspective, and maybe something that I don't know, we should think about.
Yeah,
I thought I'd just provoke everyone now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe what we need is a lawyer AI, right? And artificial intelligence that is also a lawyer and can make this regulation for itself and other AIs.
Yeah, but I think it raises the question of multidisciplinarity in the education of our people. I agree with what you say, Stanley, but I think it's really this is really in favor of having collaboration, research collaboration between people from legal aspect and technology. To have this kind of joint project, I don't know how easy it is, because pluridisciplinarity is always difficult because you are always far from your basis, and it's, if you do academia, it's hard to publish, it's hard to have a good career. But we are at a point where we really need people who are trained or who have a good grasp of both sectors.
Mm. Absolutely, and part of the fault is on us academics. We have our academic silos, and we don't ever go outside of that because it's far too scary. And one has to accept, I mean, who studies law? People who don't like technology. So we have to change these things, and it also depends on the signals that we send out, that in the future, if you study law, you're going to be working with technology. So part of the kind of burden is on us, our own specific disciplines. And I agree. I mean, the society's kind of problems are just going to become more complex, and the lawyers alone are not going to solve them. Technical people alone are not going to solve them. Everyone has to work together, and we kind of have to start having a common language.
Okay, thank you very much for the very fruitful discussion. I think we could stay here a couple more hours discussing it, but we are right on time. So thank you again for speaking and presenting your work and for this panel discussion. And now I will leave the floor to Michelle for some closing remarks.